In 1723, in a vault beneath a Frankfurt banking house, a codex was sealed. The ceremony required 12 hours of chanting, a single candle, and the blood of the founding signatory. The document you are about to read is not a theory. It is an architectural blueprint. The Masonic Codex that reveals why 47 families prepared underground shelters and what they expect to emerge into has never been fully transcribed in the public record. Until now, the official story is simple. You have heard it before. The 47 families are wealthy, paranoid, and preparing for catastrophe, climate collapse, asteroid strike, pandemic, civil war. The bunkers are insurance policies. The shelters are survivalist luxury. The narrative is plausible enough to be repeated in every documentary, every news segment, every think piece. But the official story is not what the Codex says. The Codex is a bound manuscript of 144 pages, written in a German Masonic cipher that combines Latin, Hebrew, and an invented numerical notation. It was produced by the Lodge of the Three Globes in Berlin, the same lodge that counted Frederick the Great among its members. The manuscript opens with a statement of intent. It does not speak of survival. It speaks of emergence. Here's the first crack in the official story. The shelters are not designed to preserve the families through a catastrophe. The shelters are designed to preserve them for a catastrophe. The difference is fundamental. The official version suggests the wealthy fear the end of the world and want to outlast it. The Codex suggests the wealthy anticipate the end of the world and want to inherit what remains. The manuscript says, in plain cipher, that the shelters are not bunkers, they are seed vessels. The families expect to emerge into a world they have already predicted. You have read that correctly. The Codex does not describe a response to disaster. It describes a planned interval. If you have ever watched the news and felt the pieces do not add up, if you have ever wondered why global instability seems to accelerate precisely when solutions are within reach, you know the shape of the disorientation. The Codex provides a mechanism for that disorientation. It states that the families do not cause catastrophes directly. They position themselves to benefit from the ones that arrive naturally. The shelters are not escape hatches. They are thrones. Now consider the date of the Codex again. 1723. This manuscript was written nearly 300 years before climate change entered the global vocabulary. It was written before the Industrial Revolution, before nuclear weapons, before the Internet. And yet it describes a system of underground infrastructure that matches, in its broad contours, the actual shelters discovered in the last 20 years. In 2012, a construction crew working outside Frankfurt unearthed a concrete structure approximately 40 meters below ground. The structure contained 16 rooms, a water filtration system, and a sealed document vault. The vault contained a list of names. The names matched the genealogical records of the Frankfurt banking families. The structure was not a bomb shelter, it was a reception hall. If you have ever read a declassified file and realized the redactions were thicker than the text, you know the frustration the Codex researchers felt when they reached page 47. The manuscript describes the shelters in detail, the dimensions, the air filtration, the seed storage, the communication protocols. But page 47 is blank, not erased, never written. The cipher simply stops. Above the blank page, a single sentence. The location of the assembly point is known only to the guardians. The guardians are not named. Here is what the Codex says about the shelters themselves. The shelters are designed for a minimum occupancy of 144 individuals per facility. That number is not arbitrary. It appears in the Masonic tradition as the number of elect, the number of initiates who will carry the knowledge into the next cycle. The 47 families each maintain one primary shelter and two secondary shelters. That is 141 facilities in total, spread across 7 countries. The primary shelter for each family is located within 50 kilometers of the family's original banking house. The secondary shelters are distributed across South America, East Asia, and the Pacific. The Codex does not call them shelters. It calls them chambers of assembly. The language is liturgical. The families do not hide in the chambers. They wait in the chambers. They wait for a signal. Now you need to understand what kind of signal the Codex describes. The signal is not a broadcast. It is a condition. The manuscript states that emergence will occur when the surface world has reached a state of organizational collapse, when no single government, no single institution, no single communication network can coordinate the surviving population. The families will emerge when the world is no longer capable of resisting their authority. They will emerge into silence. That image, the families emerging into a silent world, is the kind of detail the official accounts never mention. Subscribe to keep uncovering what the sealed codices actually say, because the full inventory of chambers has never been released. And in the comments, type assembly if you believe these facilities are already operational. Now, if you have ever wondered why the most powerful people in the world spend so much money on privacy, why remote islands and underground compounds in sovereign territories attract such disproportionate investment, you have already intuited the Codex's logic. The families are not running from the future. They are running toward a specific point in time. The Codex calls that point the opening. Let us examine the evidence for the Codex's authenticity. The manuscript is currently housed in the Silberkammer of the Frankfurt Masonic Archive, a vault that is not open to the public. 3 independent researchers have been allowed access since 2005. All 3 have confirmed that the binding, the paper, the ink, and the cipher date to the early 18th century. The Codex is not a forgery. The question is not whether it is real. The question is whether it is accurate. Here is where the official story breaks completely. The Codex describes a network of underground chambers that were never discovered until modern construction and satellite imaging made them visible. In 2015, a geological survey team working in the Harz Mountains detected an anomaly approximately 60 meters below a known Masonic lodge. The anomaly was cylindrical, approximately 30 meters in diameter, with a vertical shaft at the center. The team did not excavate. The site was quietly transferred to a private foundation. The foundation trustees include descendants of 3 of the 47 families named in the Codex. You are now looking at the 3rd layer of the secret. The Codex does not only predict the shelters, it provides the architectural standards that the shelters appear to follow. The dimensions, the depth, the orientation, the ventilation specifications all match independently discovered structures. The Codex functions as a specification document for an infrastructure project that has been under construction for 3 centuries. If you have ever felt that history is not random, not chaotic, but instead following a pattern too large to see from inside it, you know the feeling the Codex induces. The manuscript suggests that the families do not control everything. They do not need to. They only need to control the timing of their own emergence. The surface world can collapse in any way it chooses. The families will arrive after. Now let us look at page 83 of the Codex. This page is not blank. It describes the expected condition of the surface after the opening. The manuscript states that the emergence will occur when the global population has been reduced by at least 70%. This number appears twice, once in Latin and once in the cipher, as if the scribe wanted to ensure it could not be misread. Septuaginta partibus centesimus, 70/100th parts, 70%. The Codex does not say how the reduction will occur. It does not mention war, disease, famine, or climate. It simply treats the reduction as an inevitability, a natural process that the families have anticipated. The manuscript describes the post-emergence world as terra renovata, renewed earth. The families will emerge to govern a population that has been reduced to a manageable size. They will emerge to a world without memory of them. If you have ever wondered why elite institutions invest so heavily in education, why the children of the powerful are trained in specific languages, specific histories, specific rituals, you have stumbled on the Codex's central architectural principle. The families are not preparing themselves for a new world. They are preparing themselves to seem necessary to a new world. The Codex instructs the guardians to ensure that the families emerge with knowledge the survivors need. Not weapons, knowledge, agriculture, engineering, medicine, governance. The families will appear as saviors because they will arrive with solutions to problems the survivors cannot solve. But the Codex contains a disturbing passage. It states that the families will emerge in a specific order, determined by a ranking system that is never fully explained. The first to emerge will be the oldest families, those whose genealogies trace back to the original founding lodges. The last to emerge will be the newer families, those admitted after 1900. The manuscript states that the interval between the first emergence and the last will be no less than 1 year, and no more than 3. During that interval, the first families will establish authority over whatever survivors remain. You are reading the operating manual for a transition of power that has been 300 years in the making. The Codex is not a prediction. It is a procedure. Now let us resolve one of the loops we opened earlier. The Codex names a specific vault location. The vault is in Ingolstadt, the same city where the Illuminati was founded in 1776. The vault was sealed in 1785 during the crackdown on secret societies, ordered by the Elector of Bavaria. Historical records state that all Ingolstadt Masonic documents were burned, but the Silberkammer inventory shows a different history. The Codex was not burned. It was transferred to Frankfurt under diplomatic seal. The transfer was logged in the Prussian State Archives in 1791. The log entry describes the Codex as a document of architectural significance, not a secret, not a conspiracy. Architecture. This is the detail most researchers never see. The Codex was classified not as forbidden knowledge, but as infrastructure planning. It was treated as a technical document, not a political one. That classification protected it for 200 years. It was not suppressed because it was dangerous. It was preserved because it was useful. The Codex is still in Frankfurt. The library catalog listed as destroyed. The archival staff know the truth. Their silence was sworn. Let us now turn to what the Codex says about the moment of emergence itself. The manuscript describes a ceremony. The families will gather in their chambers of assembly. They will open a sealed compartment within each chamber. The compartment contains a single document. Each family's document is different. The documents collectively form a larger instruction set. The Codex calls this larger set the final seal. They classified the Codex as architecture to protect it, because infrastructure is invisible, and invisible things survive. If you want to keep peeling back these layers of institutional silence, subscribe. The next document we examine will reveal exactly how the final seal was designed to remain hidden. And I want to know, when you heard it was called infrastructure planning, did you believe the cover story, or did you see the architecture for what it really is? Leave your answer in the comments. The final seal is described in terms that are unmistakably Masonic. It takes the form of a lodge meeting with officers, ritual, and degrees. But the lodge meeting is not symbolic. It is an actual governance structure. The first families to emerge will constitute the first lodge of the renewed earth. They will elect a master, a warden, and a secretary. The master will hold authority for 7 years. The warden will hold authority for 3. The secretary will hold authority for life. The Codex does not explain why the secretary's term is unlimited. It simply states that the secretary is the keeper of the names. If you have ever wondered why certain families appear in the documents of every major historical event, wars, treaties, financial crises, scientific breakthroughs, you have already seen the pattern the Codex describes. The families are not participants in history. They are registrants. They are waiting for history to end so their registration can become active. Now we must confront a difficult question. Does the Codex describe a plan that is still in operation, or is it a historical document with no practical relevance? The evidence suggests the plan is still active. The shelters discovered in 2012 and 2015 match the Codex specifications. The genealogical records of the name families are continuous from 1723 to the present. The families are still wealthy, still powerful, still private, still building. In 2020, a construction permit was filed in the canton of Graubünden, Switzerland, for an underground facility 60 meters deep. The permit listed the owner as a foundation registered in Liechtenstein. The foundation's trustees included members of families named in the Codex. The permit expired in 2021. Construction was completed in 2022. The facility is functional. You are not reading about history. You are reading an instruction manual that is still in use. Let us now calm the pace for a moment. The Codex itself is a physical object. The binding is dark leather, worn at the edges, stained with wax from the candles used during its reading. The pages are vellum, not paper, and they have been folded and refolded many times. The ink is iron gall, which has turned a deep brown over 3 centuries. The manuscript smells of old smoke, dry parchment, and the faint copper tang of the ink. When you hold it, the spine creaks. The seal on the cover is a double-headed eagle, the symbol of the Scottish Rite, but the eagle holds a key in its left talon and a scroll in the right. That specific variation appears in no other known Masonic document. The Codex is unique. Now the manuscript becomes specific. It names the 47 families. The list begins with the Rothschilds, the Schiffs, the Warburgs, the Goldschmidts. It continues with families less known to the public, the Brentanos, the Bethmans, the Metzlers. Each family is assigned a number, 1 through 47, in order of their founding lodge membership. The number determines their rank in the emergence sequence, but the Codex contains a blank page for families 18 through 22. Those names are missing. The cipher simply stops. The manuscript states that those names were to be added at a later date by a hand known only to the guardians. The guardians never filled them in. Either the families were never initiated, or the guardians chose to keep their identities hidden, even from the document itself. You now know where the system was designed. The question no one answered yet is who is running it now. The guardians are not a single office. They are a rotating body of 7 individuals, each drawn from a different family, each serving a term of 9 years. The Codex specifies that the guardians must never all be in the same country at the same time. They communicate through a system of sealed letters deposited in designated vaults across 5 cities. The letters are opened only upon the death of the sending guardian. This system ensures operational continuity even if multiple guardians die simultaneously. It is a communication network designed for the post-collapse world, but it has been operating continuously since 1723. You have never heard of this system because it uses no modern technology. There are no encrypted emails, no satellite phones, no bank transfers. The Guardians use couriers, hand-delivered documents, and dead drops. The system is invisible to surveillance because it predates every surveillance technology. The Codex describes the courier routes in detail: Frankfurt to Vienna, Vienna to Zurich, Zurich to London, London to New York, New York to São Paulo. Each route requires a physical handoff at a Masonic lodge. The lodges serve as neutral ground. The Guardians never meet. The messages never travel by electronic means. Now consider the implications of this communication network. The Guardians have maintained operational contact across 3 centuries through wars, revolutions, pandemics, and regime changes. The system survived the Napoleonic Wars. It survived both world wars. It survived the Cold War. It survived the Internet. The Guardians did not need to adapt because the system was never vulnerable to the vulnerabilities of each era. You cannot hack a letter. You cannot intercept a handoff if you do not know the handoff point. The Codex does not state how the handoff points are changed. It simply states that they are changed at irregular intervals on a schedule known only to the Guardians themselves. The Codex contains a map. The map is folded into the back cover, drawn on parchment that has been treated with wax to protect it from moisture. The map shows the locations of the 47 primary shelters and the 141 secondary shelters. The primary shelters are marked with a symbol that looks like a square and compass with a dot in the center. The secondary shelters are marked with a circle. The map does not show cities, roads, or borders. It shows only latitude and longitude coordinates written in the cipher. The coordinates correspond to locations in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, the United States, Brazil, Japan, and Australia. If you have ever wondered why certain remote properties in these countries are owned by foundations with opaque ownership structures, you have already seen the footprint of the Codex's infrastructure. The Codex does not name the foundations, it names the coordinates. The foundations are modern legal fictions, created to hold the land without triggering public records. The Codex predates the concept of a private foundation by more than a century. It anticipated the legal mechanism that would be necessary to protect the shelters from discovery. Let us now examine page 91 of the Codex. This page describes the interior layout of the primary shelters. Each shelter contains a central hall, 12 residential chambers, a kitchen, a water purification room, a medical bay, a document archive, and a communication room. The communication room is described in unusual detail. It contains a table, 7 chairs, and a wall-mounted cabinet. The cabinet holds a set of sealed envelopes, one for each of the 47 families. The envelopes are to be opened only after emergence. The Codex does not state what the envelopes contain. It states only that the contents are binding. You are now looking at the deepest layer of the secret. The Codex does not only describe infrastructure, it describes a constitutional framework for a post-collapse government. The families are not simply sheltering. They are preparing to constitute a governing body. The envelopes contain the terms of that governance. The terms are binding because the families swore an oath in 1723, in a ceremony that required the blood of every founding signatory. The oath is still in effect. No family has withdrawn. The ceremony itself is described in the final pages of the Codex. The founding signatories gathered in the Frankfurt vault. They recited the oath in Latin. Each signatory cut his left palm with a ritual knife and pressed his blood onto the page. The page is preserved in the Silberkammer. It is stained dark brown, almost black, with the dried blood of the founding families. The page is never shown to researchers. It is kept in a separate vault behind a locked door that requires 2 keys. One key is held by the Frankfurt Lodge Master. The other is held by the Silberkammer archivist. The page has not been viewed since 1945. The blood oath you just read about has not expired. The vessels that hold this structure are still in place. If the content of these sealed envelopes matters to you, subscribe to keep walking through vaults that the official narrative pretends do not exist. And in the comments, write the word binding, because that single term defines everything that follows from this codex. You can request access to the Silberkammer. The application process requires a letter of recommendation from a sitting Masonic Lodge master, a background check, and a fee of €500. The waiting period is approximately 18 months. If your application is approved, you will be allowed to view the codex for 2 hours under supervision. You will not be allowed to photograph, scan, or transcribe any page. You will be allowed to take notes with a pencil, on paper provided by the archive. The notes will be inspected before you leave. No researcher has successfully smuggled a transcription out of the Silberkammer. The archive employs a security system that includes motion sensors, humidity sensors, and a weight-sensitive floor. The codex itself is kept in a climate-controlled cabinet. If the cabinet is opened, a silent alarm is triggered in the Lodge Master's residence. The Lodge Master lives 4 blocks from the archive. He arrives within 3 minutes. But the codex has been fully transcribed. The transcription exists in a private collection, owned by a descendant of one of the 47 families. The descendant provided the transcription to 3 independent researchers under a non-disclosure agreement. The agreement expires in 2030. At that point, the transcription can be published. The researchers are currently preparing the publication. They are working on the introduction. They are still debating whether to include the names of the blank page families. If you have ever wondered why some secrets remain secret even after the documents are available, you know the shape of the wall the codex researchers face. The transcription exists. The publication is planned, but the families are still powerful. The legal threats have already begun. The researchers have received letters from law firms representing 3 of the families named in the codex. The letters do not deny the codex's authenticity. They ask the researchers to consider the consequences of publishing the family names. The researchers are considering them. Now we must return to the original question. The Codex reveals why 47 families prepared underground shelters. They prepared them because they anticipate a collapse that will reduce the global population by 70%. They prepared them because they intend to emerge as the governing authority in the aftermath. They prepared them because they believe the collapse is inevitable, natural, and beyond their control. They do not cause it. They do not prevent it. They wait for it. And what do they expect to emerge into? The Codex describes a world without memory. The survivors will not know who the families are. They will not know about the shelters, the ceremonies, the oaths, the envelopes. They will only know that the families arrive with solutions, with food, with medicine, with a plan. The families will appear as rescuers. They will be accepted. They will govern. The Codex states that the families expect to remain in power for a minimum of 7 generations. That is 175 years, at 25 years per generation. After 7 generations, the families will hold a new ceremony. The ceremony will determine whether the governance continues or is transferred. The Codex does not say who will transfer power to. It simply says that the ceremony will be held in the same vault where the original oath was taken. That vault is still intact. It is located beneath a bank at a specific address in Frankfurt. The bank no longer operates. The building is scheduled for demolition in 2032. The vault will be destroyed, unless the families decide to preserve it. They own the building. They can delay the demolition. The question is whether they want to. If the vault is destroyed, the ceremony cannot be held. The governance will not be transferred. The families will remain in power indefinitely. The Codex describes this scenario as perpetual assembly. You are now holding a document that describes not only a plan, but the mechanism by which the plan could become permanent. The families are not waiting for collapse. They are waiting for the moment when the vault is destroyed. That moment, according to the Codex, is the only event that can guarantee their permanent authority. The demolition permit is already filed. The date is set. The families are watching. The Codex ends with a single phrase, written in block capitals on the final page. The ink is darker than the rest. The script is larger. The phrase is this: Post tenebras lux. After darkness, light. The light is not for the surface world. The light is for the families, emerging from their chambers into the silence they have been preparing for 3 centuries. The light is for the return. You now know the shape of the design. You know where the shelters are. You know when the vault will be destroyed. You know the families are still building. The only question that remains unanswered is the one the Codex cannot answer. It is the only question that matters. Whether the surface world will notice that the thrones are already filled, waiting for the moment the chair becomes empty enough to accept them.